Well. It is I, the lyrical miracle, the sexual intellectual, the alpha male, the quintessential stud muffin, Josh Hardbody, here with my partner in these dirty deeds.
Your boy Diamond Steve. Sorry, I'm not as excited. Well, actually, we take it back. This episode of Average Bros Podcast, the two Average Bros, we're going to be going over ECW.
Steve, I feel like you got a little distracted by my intro there. It was pretty good.
I'm going to give it to you. That intro probably has to be the best intro you have done in these 6 episodes we've done.
That's right. I've got to give a shout out to Joel Gertner, the original quintessential stud muffin. He's really good.
So today we're going to be talking ECW. We've talked a lot in the last couple weeks. We've talked our journey. We've talked Monday Night War, Part 1 and 2, a little bit of NWO, a little bit of the Attitude Era. Talked finishes, and now we're on a topic that I know you're very excited about.
I'm super excited.
I know that our listeners are very excited about.
All 32 of them.
Hey, you know what? And we appreciate every single one of you that listens to our podcast every week. Even if you click on it while you're working out, this is a big shout out to FA up there. You do your thing, and this is the episode you've been waiting for. So let's get to it. ECW, or Extreme Championship Wrestling.
When I think about ECW, I think about sitting in an English class with a friend of mine who said, Hardbody, you like wrestling, don't you? I'm like, yeah, I like wrestling. He's like, have you ever heard about ECW? I said, no, I don't really know what it is. He said, watch it. It's on TNN on Friday night. I said, okay.
And what do we got?
Friday night rolls around, and then I get to see Tajiri, Little Guido, and Super Crazy in a 3-way dance where they beat the hell out of each other for real for like 30 minutes, and I'm hooked.
And how much money do you think they made?
About $17.
That's after or before they took whatever they're going to take?
Well, Paul Lee didn't actually pay him.
That's
so
true.
They didn't
That's
even
true.
make the money.
That's a true statement. Now, my experience with ECW is I was told by a friend just like you, they were like, Diamond, you got to watch this stuff. This stuff is more real than WCW. Mm-hmm. It's harder than that candy-coated bullshit they're trying to hand you in the WWF. Mm-hmm. There's blood, there's violence, there's everything you could imagine.
There's boobs.
There's boobs.
Yeah.
A lot of ass shots in
Yeah.
ECW.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of girls wearing hardly nothing.
Yep.
But let's get to the meats and potatoes, okay? I know every podcast has probably done this, but let's give it a little background. We're not historians or anything like that, so I'm going to go off of what I know.
Sure.
So this all started with Eastern Championship Wrestling.
Yes.
Where Shane Douglas or Eastern Championship Wrestling was getting recognized by the NWA, correct?
Yeah, it was initially run by Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert.
Yes.
And he booked it like it was Memphis, Philadelphia. And eventually, the owner of Eastern Championship Wrestling, Gordon, wants to move to somebody different, and he moves to Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman's like, hey, we're going to move in a totally different direction here, and that's this more extreme, this rawer, this realer product.
Okay, but when we talk product, the product, it's still wrestling. It's still predetermined. They're still saying, hey, hard body Diamond, you're going out there tonight, hard body's going over. We don't care what you do.
Yeah.
But hard body's going over.
Yeah.
All right, cool. But let's talk about the moment. All right, so let's talk about the highlight of Shane Douglas's career. That's right. You got me on video saying this. I don't care what people say. Shane Douglas is overrated. I'm not a fan, and we can talk about it later. But Shane Douglas, the Dean from WWF.
Oh, he's the franchise, sir.
The franchise. Okay, so he wins the NWA title from Too Cool Scorpio.
Yes.
And, you know, he's doing his little, oh my God, I can't believe I did it, to the Harley races, to the Ric Flairs.
They can all kiss my ass. And he throws the belt down.
Do you think there's anything other than that people will really, truly ever remember Shane Douglas for?
Does it matter? That's a huge wrestling moment, and that's a promo that will go down in history forever, long after Shane Douglas is dead and gone.
I mean, I'll give you that. I'm not denying that fact, but I'm just saying when you listen to this guy talk, and we're going to sit here and talk about this for a few minutes. We got an hour to kill.
I have a lot to talk about with Shane.
Shane Douglas is not good. I don't like his in-work work. I'm not a fan of him.
He's
sits
okay.
Here. Well, the problem with him is that it was always someone else's fault when you listen to him talk. In WWF, he didn't get over because of the clique. In WCW, he couldn't do anything because of Ric Flair and all the people he named during his little speech that when he initially started the ECW title and all that stuff, when he threw down the NWA belt.
To be fair to Shane, the WWF did have the clique, and WCW did have a whole bunch of politics. It was hard for anybody to get over that wasn't involved in those politics. And a new guy coming in from a hotshot company, of course he's going to get froze out.
DDP got over. DDP worked his way from the bottom of WCW as a stupid-ass gimmick and got over.
Are you ready, Steve?
I'm ready.
DDP was friends with Dusty Rhodes and Eric Bischoff. Try again. Crushed him, ladies and gentlemen. He's crushed. He's speechless. Oh my God, he's speechless. But politics is a big part of wrestling. It's natural because these are all predetermined matches. And friends are going to help their other friends get big. Look at the clique. Look at Sean Waltman and X-Pac. Would have he been anything without being friends with guys like Sean and Diesel and Razor?
Well, as the 1-2-3 kid, he got over with people.
Are you serious?
I'm not saying he got over with adults, but kids were in the crowd with 1-2-3 kid shirts on. You know what I'm saying? He got over with kids. I can't help to tell you this, but that's who WWF was aiming for.
These kids are a bunch of marks, Steve.
Okay, kids aren't old enough to be considered marks?
Yes, they're the quintessential marks.
Okay, I'm sorry, not smart marks. Yeah, marks, yes. Marks, I'll give you that. I'm thinking people that know what's going on. Okay, well, they see this guy beat the big bad guy, and they're like, oh, I can beat up my bully. Mm-hmm. The bad man.
Yeah. A medium-sized man.
I feel like we're getting off topic here. We're already arguing. We haven't even gotten to the meat and potatoes of this episode.
It is okay for you to be wrong, Steve.
I'm not saying I'm not wrong. I'm just saying Shane Douglas isn't everything he makes himself out to be.
Yeah, Shane Douglas is okay.
Thank you.
Is he the greatest worker ever? No, he's okay. Is he the greatest promo ever?
You can sit here and have that conversation
okay.
about a bunch of different people being the greatest worker and shit like that, and people are going to have different opinions.
Yeah.
There's probably someone out there in the interweb world that will sit here and tell me Shane Douglas is the best wrestler ever who just got overlooked.
And that guy's an idiot.
I'm not doubting you there. Mm-hmm. I'm just giving an example. Hell, there's someone out there that will tell me Diesel was the best worker ever. And he was the worst WWF champion, I'm pretty sure, of all time.
Probably.
Drawing
he didn't
money
draw hardly
wise.
Anybody, no.
But now, okay, let's calm it on down. We're gonna get flustered anyway. We're gonna go into ECW.
Is your blood pressure up, Steve?
No, my blood pressure is not up. Because I've been looking forward to this. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been looking forward to this episode for a week now. Let me give you some background. Your boy Diamond Steve has been watching crappy ECW wrestling for the last week. For the last week, I've been watching pay-per-views on the network to do my research for this. And I am not going to have a bunch of negative stuff to say, but I do have some negative things to say that Hardbody is not going to agree with because he is part of some cult that apparently I am not a part of.
Yes, I am part of the cult. But we'll talk about the cult and the cult mentality here in a little bit. I watched ECW for a week as well, and it's just as awesome as it was in the year 1999.
Can you really say that? Can you really sit here and tell me that the shit you're watching from 98, 99 is still awesome today?
Yes.
I don't get it, man. I just don't understand it. I sat there and watched from 98 to the end of 99 last week.
Yeah.
The quintessential of ECW.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And let's point one thing out. All these names you hear about in ECW, I didn't see in a single pay-per-view.
What names are those for the listeners at home?
Okay, let's talk about it. I know I started in 98, so all these guys are already gone because Austin's already doing his thing.
Yep.
Mick Foley's already doing his thing.
Yep.
But all of these dudes that you hear ECW had, one, were only there for a cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. Two, didn't even really wrestle. Half of them just came in and cut promos on the company they were working for beforehand, i.e. Brian Pillman, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Mick Foley, I think, wrestled one or two. I take that back. Mick Foley or Stone Cold wrestled like 3 or 4, I think, on TV.
Yeah, he got beat by Mikey Whipwreck, and it was delightful.
You put Mikey Whipwreck over stunning Steve Austin, a guy who could work.
Austin's leaving the company. Give somebody the rub. Come on.
Mikey Whipwreck.
Yeah, Mikey held the belt, and he feuded with Cactus and all that. It's good. Mikey looks terrible now. When Mikey's young, he's entertaining. He's doing the flips and stuff, and he's the young 19-year-old ring guy that got a chance at the big time.
I don't get it.
You can't tell me that story doesn't... It's like Rudy. He's so small. Mikey did it. He did it. He beat Cactus.
Okay, here's my problem with Mikey Rickrack, alright? Here's my problem with a lot of dudes that you watch in ECW. You have your select few that can wrestle. And I'm not going to sit here and talk about the Chris Benoits and the Dean Malenkos and the Eddie Guerreros and the Chris Jerichos, all these dudes that were in and out of ECW real quick.
Why not? They worked for the company. It counts.
I'm going to talk about the ones that put that company on their back and stayed with the company. Let's talk about RVD. Mm-hmm. I'll put him in the conversation. Let's talk about Jerry Lynn.
Yeah, I love Jerry Lynn.
Let's talk about Lance Storm.
Love Lance Storm.
Who stayed with the company until the company's doors were literally about to close, and he was like, I got to go make money in WCW.
Can I be serious for a second?
You guys want to shit on him? Just Incredible could work. In a company of a bunch of guys that were just jumping off ladders and shit, he could put on a wrestling match. Watch the matches with him and like Jerry Lynn and RVD and things like that. Yeah. He could work. Chris Candido could work as a wrestler. He didn't have to do all the crazy shit. Mm-hmm. Mike Awesome could actually work as a wrestler. Not the greatest. I'm not saying he was great by any means.
He's a great big man. He's really
good. But he could work.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Well, you know me and you, we have the same opinion. Big men are overlooked, I think, a lot. When I say overlooked, I'm not talking about like overlooked like they get shadowed. I mean overlooked like they're looked at too much.
Well, and what Awesome could do as a big man was really incredible. He's balancing on the ropes. He's doing some flippy stuff. He's doing top rope maneuvers. He's giving hideous bumps, and he's taking hideous bumps as well. And I love it.
All right, let's get some other ones in there. Rhino could work. Mm-hmm. He could wrestle. But when he was in ECW, he did a lot of hardcore stuff. When you saw him go to WWE, he could actually put on a wrestling match.
What made Rhino really work was the smaller ring. In that 18 or 19-foot ring that's just a few feet smaller than the WWE ring, he looks like a big guy. And he just looks like a short, stocky guy in the WWE ring. Same thing happened with Taz.
Yes, Taz. There's another guy. Great technical wrestler. Mm-hmm. Did hardcore things, but if you really wanted him to put on a wrestling clinic, he could. The suplexes, the submission moves, all that stuff, Taz had it.
Taz is the first mayor of Suplex City.
He is. And if you ask me, he never resigned. He was impeached and kicked out.
I agree. You could also make an argument for Scott Steiner being mayor of Suplex City.
Oh, there's a couple others I could sit here and think about.
Samoa Joe!
Yeah, Samoa Joe.
You're fat!
Fat!
Those promos are tremendous.
But you sit here and watch ECW, and the one thing I don't understand, Hardbody, and maybe you can explain it to me, and maybe it's part of this cult mentality you're talking about. So you watch that first pay-per-view, their first pay-per-view, Barely Legal in '98.
And it was indeed barely legal.
It was indeed barely legal, I will give you that. And you have these matches at the beginning that are actual matches. I believe that's where you see Jerry Lynn and Lance Storm. It's Jerry Lynn and RVD.
That's not at Barely Legal. Barely Legal's first match is the Eliminators and the Dudleys.
Yeah, but doesn't RVD and Jerry Lynn fight later?
He fights Lance Storm because Chris Candido's hurt.
No, that's the next pay-per-view.
Well, I'm getting them mixed up.
You are getting them mixed up. So, what I'm trying to point out here is, so you get an actual tag team match with some bollocks in there, like, obviously the tag rules don't matter because they're in the ring and stuff like that, but it's still putting on a decent match.
It's tornado tag.
And you have these two dudes put on a match. And you have these other guys put on a match. And then the shit-tainery happens. Where you got like your Sandman and Terry Funk and Stevie Richards in a ladder match. And all they're doing is taking crazy-ass bumps, no actual wrestling going on.
What's wrong with Big Stevie Cool?
Big Stevie Cool?
Yeah, he's part of the BWO with Nova and the Blue Guy.
The Blue Meanie, sir. Let's use his Christian name.
Yeah, the BWO is pretty cool. And Big Stevie Cool's there. He broke away from Raven, and he's getting a shot at the big time for a little cup of coffee. He doesn't make it, but it's fine.
I just don't understand it. And maybe it's just because I was not...
Let me help you out for a second. What can help you understand is that when you see the opening to that first pay-per-view with Barely Legal, and you've got 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, however many fans it is, just raucous. ECW, 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 EC, and they're doing it so long because the audio's messed up and the tech crew's trying to get it back up, but they just keep it going and it's raucous, and they come out and it's just a rock and roll concert atmosphere, and you are part of it. Not just in the crowd, you at home are part of it, because I believe in what's happening in this show. I believe in what these wrestlers are doing.
So you believe in the dudes that can't wrestle that are in the main event?
You're talking about the Sandman.
I am talking about the Sandman. a guy who was drunk before even getting to the ring, and luckily he didn't kill anybody. I'm talking about the guys like New Jack that was over because he would cut people. And I'm not even talking about the mass transit incident.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the fact of how this dude that was over in ECW was tasing people off a fucking shackle or whatever the fuck that thing is. Scaffolding, and having the dude fall, luckily only twisted an ankle. Let's talk about that dumb shit.
Okay, hold on.
And you keep people employed that way.
Steve, I'm going to need you to take a breath. You okay? You want to talk about it?
I'm fine.
Where did New Jack touch you? What did he do?
We can sit here. You can't sit here.
I'm not defending New Jack. Have I ever defended New Jack? No.
Okay.
No, but I will defend the Sandman.
How are you going to defend the Sandman?
I believe because he believes. And the crowd believes, and we all believe together. I've got goosebumps talking about it. You hear that Sandman lick hit, and then Sandman cracks open the beer, and he's drinking that beer. It's not even running down. It's smashing it on his head, and he's pouring the beer on the crowd, and he raises the kendo stick, and I'm ready to see somebody get seriously maimed for my entertainment.
He could not wrestle. The only thing he could possibly do is a really unprotected power driver that made me worry every time I watched one of these pay-per-views watching him give it.
Are you saying that the Heineken Rada is not a safe maneuver?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Because 9 times out of 10, it looked like he was going to fall without actually getting the guy. Or the guy had to do all the work and jump off the top of the fucking rope.
How many people did Sandman hurt?
I'm pretty sure...
Oh, got him.
I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of people he hurt that didn't say anything because they continued to work so that they can get that cheer. ECW, ECW. Not Diamond Steve, Diamond Steve. No, fuck cheering the wrestlers. We're just going to cheer the fucking promotion.
Okay, that's a legitimate criticism. However, from the outside looking in, that's what it looks like. The ECW chant looks like they're chanting ECW and not New Jack. They're chanting ECW and not RVD. When you chant ECW, you're chanting for all of it. You're chanting for the guys in the ring. You're chanting for the promotion. You're chanting for the crowd. I'm chanting for me at home because I believe in ECW.
Fun tidbit. You want to know how much that pisses Diamond Steve off? I was watching Revolution this weekend on Sunday, and we'll probably get to it a little bit later on today.
We definitely will.
We'll probably end the show with our AEW talk like we normally do. But here's the thing that annoyed me during the ladder match. AEW, AEW, AEW. Not Cody Rhodes or Scorpio Sky, who's the best of us, by the way. And that dude totally needs to win the TNT title on Wednesday.
I love Darby, but go Scorpio.
Yeah, like I like Darby, but Darby's got a bunch of other things going on. We can give the TNT title to Scorpio and make him our fighting champion.
The difference for me with that AEW chant and the ECW chant is that ECW chant was organic and it was part of the show. The crowd was as big a part of the show as the wrestlers and the promos and the valets and the announcers and the promotion. The crowd was every bit the character that all of them were. Where guys in the AEW crowd are just being a couple smart marks.
Okay, I'll give you that. I'm not going to sit here and deny that. I'm just telling you that's how much it bothers Diamond Steve.
Yeah.
It bothers me
Yeah.
hearing them cheer the promotion and not the wrestler. You don't hear them cheering WWF. Oh, I mean, no one's going to fucking cheer WWF. No one's going to cheer WWE. Their fucking product is horrible. They finally put the fucking titles on Bobby Lashley.
Hey, good for Bobby.
No,
He's
I'm
really
not saying
improved.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but why not just put him in the Elimination Chamber match and have him beat Drew McIntyre? Why have The Miz turn in the Money in the Bank just to lose it the next night?
Because they want people to hate The Miz.
They already hate The Miz.
I don't know.
The Miz was a face.
Steve, I didn't look at it. I don't know. If I was booking that
face.
company, Aleister Black would be doing something.
If I was booking that company, Ricochet would at least have some kind of title.
Prince Puma, buddy. I need you to come close to the speakers, Prince Puma. I know you're listening. I need you to go to AEW right now.
You, sir, can have so many good matches if you were to go to AEW right now. I mean, it's good enough for Christian Cage. It should be good enough for Prince Puma.
And bring Will Ospreay too.
Yeah. DBZ Fight Part 2.
Oh, man. How incredible was that match? But anyway, I think we've digressed a little bit here. I got indoctrinated into that cult on day one, watching Yoshiro Tajiri kicking Little Guido's head off for real and doing flippy stuff and spitting green mist at Super Crazy.
You know,
it's nuts.
And you know what's funny is when you first see Tajiri come into ECW, he's wearing blue and white tights, baby face, I'm from Japan guy.
Yeah.
And obviously he signs with ECW, and that's when you start seeing like the leather pants he wears with the the dragon logo with the green mist and everything else.
Yeah.
But
you see, because he's a heel.
Oh no, I get it. I get it. I mean, in wrestling, if you're a foreigner, usually you start off as a heel. Let's be real here. Like 9 times out of 10, you start off as a heel, and then you eventually can become a babyface. It's always Rusev Day in my heart.
Oh man, that guy actually worked as a babyface. He never cheated and just gets screwed over by Cena. But anyway, and to think about that crowd in ECW, really everybody's a heel until that crowd accepts you, because that's a really mean Philadelphia crowd that is going to let you have it.
Let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about actually, I stand corrected, at Barely Legal. Mm-hmm. It was RVD and Lance Storm, because that's where you hear the chair shot not heard across the world, because Lance Storm literally taps RVD with that chair, and the crowd goes nuts. Like, just...
Yeah.
Jesus.
What? That's the way they booed him. Yeah, I see the audio, Mark. That's the way they booed him. If you're going to hit him with a chair, lay him out.
I get it. And I'm not... Okay, let's make this perfectly clear for the listening audience, for our 30 listeners that listen to this show on a weekly basis when we put it out.
I'm amped up here for our 30 listeners. I'm excited.
Our 30 listeners, we love you. Keep your head up. Enjoy the show. But let's make it very clear here. Diamond Steve is not against hardcore wrestling. I'm not against hardcore wrestling.
You could have fooled me.
I am with hardcore wrestling when it tells a story. When you have like these two guys that have fought on and off again, and it's like the only way we're going to settle this is an no holds bar match, tables, ladders, and chairs, or something like that. Mm-hmm. I can get down with it. My problem is when it's an every week thing, and the wrestler feels like he has to outdo himself from last week. So I jumped off the top rope this week. Mm-hmm. Next week it's going to be a ladder.
Yep.
The week after that, it's going to be the second floor, and then the week after that, I'm going to have to come off the ceiling.
Yeah, and then a helicopter.
That's where my problem comes into play. How much is too much?
It's in the name, Steve. Extreme.
You can be extreme. Everything they were doing was putting them on the map. From their wrestling, to their scandally women, to their hardcore stuff. Mm-hmm. They were giving you everything that you wanted to see. Back then, because it wasn't candy coated, it wasn't a bunch of colorful gimmicks, it was just dudes coming out and wrestling. Mm-hmm. The problem is that I have with it is that there was a bunch of dudes that probably could not actually put on a wrestling match, who probably hurt a bunch of people. If we were to go back and probably interview half those people now.
Who?
What do you mean who? Okay, that's a good point. Let's talk about who. Armstrong or Hardbody. Who the fuck is left? Who's alive?
That's long-term stuff. That wasn't in the ring.
Who's alive, though?
Dreamer, Tanaka, Sabu, Credible, guys like that. Steve Corino's alive.
Okay, so a couple of those
Kid
dudes...
Cash is alive.
A couple of those dudes you just mentioned weren't doing the hardcore stuff. They were doing the flippy, cool stuff, but they weren't doing the hardcore stuff every night. I'm talking about like your Balls Mahoney's, who were taking chair shots, unprotected, left and right.
Yeah, Balls Mahoney's pretty terrible. He was also a drug addict. That didn't help either.
Okay, but I'll give you that. But I'm just saying, like, look at his work. When you try to put him in a wrestling match, he can't wrestle. December to Remember, or whatever the fuck that horrible pay-per-view
December
was called.
to Dismember, something
whatever
like
the
that.
hell it's called. You watch him wrestle. Matt Stryker. He can't wrestle. But he's in a wrestling company. The only reason why he has a job when WWE's doing their horrible ECW, and we can all agree that WWE ECW is horrible. Like, you got a zombie on the freaking screen. Like,
don't even.
The only time I cheered for Sandman, and I'm like, yeah, get this dude off my television.
We may talk about WWE ECW if we ever do a episode on the developmental territories, because that's really what the WWE ECW was.
No, clearly, because you look at it, you had your CM Punks, your Elijah Burks, your Matt Stryker, who got hurt and then became an announcer, and then went and announced at Lucha Underground. You know what I mean? Gotta get credit where credit is due. Guys who use all the sick time from actually teaching classes and get fired from teaching classes because he's over in Japan doing a tournament wrestling. Just throwing that out there.
Hey, rock and roll, man. Shane Douglas was a teacher too.
That's a true statement.
Yeah.
That's why WWF gave him the Dean gimmick.
Yeah, that wasn't the best gimmick. He wasn't the right guy for that gimmick. You can do the genius, smart guy gimmick. I just don't think Shane Douglas was the guy for it. Because Shane Douglas can't cut the promo. He can only cut a good promo if he can curse.
Are you really saying that Shane Douglas can't talk on the mic without cursing?
Not and be any good.
So why was he allowed to curse though?
In the WWE, nobody's allowed to curse. He's gone by the time they're able to do that. And in WCW, you had all the stupid politics with guys like Flair and Hogan and Nash and all them.
I mean, I'll give you that. And we keep digressing here because I don't really... What else is there to talk about ECW?
I don't know.
You're the expert.
Yeah, well, when I think of ECW, I think of that three-way dance with Tajiri, Guido, and Super Crazy. I also think about just the hellacious matches that Mike Awesome and Masato Tanaka have.
I will give you that. Those are excellent matches. That's nothing different than what you're seeing nowadays in New Japan when they have like these grudge matches. I will give you that.
They're doing it every time out. This isn't a one-time
No,
thing.
I know. They're doing it. I know. Mike Awesome and Tanaka are doing it every time out.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it's not much different. But then again, you didn't see them on a weekly basis.
You didn't have to.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. You didn't see those two fight on a weekly basis. But when you saw those two fight, it was like a grudge match. Like, man, you won the last one. I'm going to win this one. I'm going to do anything I have to win this one.
And I'm going to get my popcorn out. Because it's going to be a big time.
And that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're missing my point when I sit here and talk about what I'm talking about. You had guys in ECW that could not work in any other company.
That's true.
Because they couldn't actually work a match.
I'm not going to defend Axel and Ian Rotten or Balls Mahoney or New Jack. I'm not going to defend those guys. The reason those guys had a place on the card.
No. You missed a very key one, though. The one that you want to defend, which is Sandman.
I've already defended Sandman.
He can't wrestle.
He believes.
But he can't wrestle.
Is he better than New Jack?
No, they're both the same.
New Jack tried to maim a kid for real in the ring with the mass transit incident. They're not the same. New Jack stabbed a guy in the ring for real. You can say Sandman can't wrestle and that's fine, and I can say he can't wrestle, but the dude's got a ton of charisma, a great entrance, and is a great drinker.
What charisma does he have?
Watch the crowd.
We're just in a different greens here, and I guess as much as I hate to admit it, me and fucking Jim Cornette are in total agreement on ECW. Not hardcore wrestling, but when it comes to ECW, we are in agreement. Mm-hmm. These dudes weren't making any money, and they were literally shortening their lives for your entertainment.
Yeah, they did it because they wanted to.
Do you really think they wanted to, or that they thought they were going to get paid and didn't?
Probably a little bit of both.
Because you can obviously see the ones that were tired of not getting paid, they eventually went on and did actual stuff. Mm-hmm. RVD went to WWF.
Raven
went to WCW. Saturn went to WCW. Mm-hmm. The Dudley Boys went to WWF.
Yep.
Hell, even Sandman ended up going to WCW.
Yeah, Hardcore Hack, I do believe.
Shane Douglas ended up going back to WCW. Mm-hmm. And obviously that gimmick doesn't work because it's probably like you just said, he can't curse and whatever.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why you can go back to a company that's full of the same politics that you bitched about again.
Because he wants the payday.
Thank you.
I mean, wouldn't you? I would want the payday because even if Paul Heyman's checks are cashing, he still doesn't have the pocketbook that Ted Turner or Vince McMahon has.
No, and we see that. We see that with the guys like Jericho and Austin and Mick Foley and Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko. Like, they obviously weren't making shit for ECW because they weren't, making a lot for WCW. They were making enough to live on every year.
But let's think about what ECW really was. It was
a radical movement.
Yes, but as far as where it fit in the wrestling industry at the time, is it was a go-between between the two major companies. Let's say I'm Raven and I'm done with WCW, but I can't go on to WWE yet because of some no-compete in the WWE clause in my contract. I can go wrestle in ECW for 3 months, continue to wrestle, continue to make money, and then go on to the WWE and get the big paycheck again.
I'm not doubting that. I'm not saying ECW wasn't the middle ground, because obviously when a dude came off of WWF TV or WCW TV back then and they didn't end up on the other show, they were in ECW. Mm-hmm. This is a true fact, and I'm not doubting that fact. I guess I'm just in a minority here, and I'm not part of the cult, and I just don't see the attraction in it.
I don't think you're in the minority, and here's why. Because when you talk about guys getting their lives shortened, that's absolutely true. even if a guy like Balls Mahoney it's still alive today, he's still in terrible health.
And I'm not even
shots,
saying
drug abuse, drinking, things like that.
I'm not saying that ECW is to blame for all these short deaths, because obviously they're not. Like Mike Awesome hung himself apparently, or something like that. Right?
Yeah, he did.
And then they found out he was high on the steroid stuff or something like that. I mean, because you didn't have the same conversation about WWF. Look at all the dudes that have died working for them, or WCW for that.
Yeah, I don't really see the difference.
There's really not. People just like to point out ECW, and I guess I'm one of those people because look at the product.
There's more of it. There's more of it, and there's some really, really bad ones. Not all of them are really, really bad, but there's some really bad chair shots.
I mean, they're not like... There's some bad chair shots in WWF and WCW. Actually, not really WCW. That's all I can think of. But WWF, for sure, like, Benoit flying out of the ropes and Jericho just whacking him with the chair.
That's probably the worst chair shot ever.
That probably is. But then when you got these dudes just doing it night in and night out, though, it's got to do something. You know what I mean? Like, there's studies on this. Like, I'm not a genius by any means. I'm not a medical guy by any means.
Sure.
But there's got to be something.
You've got to keep in mind that this is 1998, 1999, 2000. Of course, people know that you don't want to get a concussion, but people didn't, for whatever reason, didn't really understand the long-term effects. We didn't know about CTE. We didn't know that Benoit was going to murder his family because of all these headshots he was taking. We know about it now, so we're putting the hindsight onto that time period, and I don't think it's fair. Was it healthy? No. Did those guys think it was healthy? No. Did they think that they were going to go murder their family 10 years later? Obviously not.
Okay. But, okay, so ECW. EC-Dub is a revolution, a movement, for the fans that were tired of the candy-coated bullshit they were getting on both products.
Yeah.
The fans that were hungry for blood.
This guy, me.
The people who wanted to watch dudes take years off their lives for their entertainment, as you like to put all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't sit, I guess it doesn't sell for me. It doesn't sell for me. And I'm not, there's a lot that, maybe it's because I was only paying attention to WWF at this time. Because 98, 99, we have, that's the peak of the Attitude Era.
Yeah, and WCW is starting to get pretty bad.
And WCW is starting to fizzle.
Yeah.
98 is obviously, or is it 98 when they lose? They finally lose the first Nitro, and after like 60 some odd weeks or some whatever.
Yeah, it might be the beginning of 99. It's in that time period.
It's somewhere in there. But ECW closes their doors when?
2001.
And who's all left in ECW when they close their doors?
Oh man, not very many people.
Like when the doors officially closed.
Dreamer, C.W. Anderson, Spike Dudley, Steve Corino, guys like that. The list is pretty short. Kid Cash, who's
Just
awesome.
Incredible.
Yeah.
He stayed until the company closed their doors. Sandman went to WCW, but I think he went back to ECW.
Yeah, he went back. He went back later because he bails Dreamer out when he's tagging with Raven.
Because obviously WCW wasn't doing anything other than just poaching talent.
Yeah.
Because they saw what WWF was doing. The only difference was that WWF was taking the guys with actual talent that could be worked on.
Yeah, and the Sandman only works.
And the Sandman didn't work, obviously, when you watch WCW. He doesn't work in WCW.
No, the Sandman's the right guy for the right company in ECW. He's a Philadelphia native in front of the home crowd, just putting it all on the line. And it works. Is that going to work in Chicago with some New York company? No, and it didn't.
Well, you also have to look at it this way. We talk about him being a beer-swilling, take-no-nonsense type of guy, in your words.
Yeah.
What we talked a couple days ago. And... well, look what you have in Austin in WWF. Are you really going to hire a guy whose gimmick is going through the crowd, drinking beer, and coming out with a kendo stick when you already have this other guy who's stunning the boss every week and drinking beer?
What Sandman is a more extreme Austin.
Go on.
That's what ECW is. ECW is the Attitude Era in the WWE, but turned up to 11. Or the Attitude Era is ECW turned down to 5. And that's what we see. And what the Attitude Era does that ECW didn't is, yeah, we'll do some unprotected share shots. We'll do some TNA. We'll do some extreme stuff. We'll fall on our heads. We'll do all that stuff. We'll do blood. but we're not going to do it every match. Hell, we might not even do it every week. And ECW was doing it not just every week, not just every show, every single match is a bloodbath and a contest where people are hurting themselves for real for my
I would like for you to take a look at some pictures of some of these ECW guys that were in ECW during the peak and towards the end of it. New Jack being one.
Looks terrible.
And look at their forehead.
Mm-hmm.
Just look at it. Even Devon. Like, look at Devon's
Oh, it's
forehead.
awful. Steve Carino's
Bubba
is
Race
really bad.
doesn't look that bad. Steve Carino's is really bad. Kid
Yeah.
Cash is not so bad. Jerry Lynn not so bad because those are two guys that put on wrestling matches.
Jerry's got some scars.
He's
but
got
he's
some
not
scars, but I
gross.
don't think they're from him gouging his fucking head every night.
Mm-hmm.
But you got some guys that, I mean, you can look at RVD. He didn't really, I mean, he did hardcore stuff, but he didn't really do the hardcore. Like, he did some flips onto a table. But I mean, but he wasn't doing anything crazy.
I don't ever remember seeing RVD bleed.
No.
If he bled, it was the hard way.
Yes. I don't remember ever seeing him take a chair shot laying on the ground, and you obviously know he's blading.
And for our audience that's not familiar with some of this terminology, blading is the act of taking a sharp object and cutting in your hairline to make you bleed so that blood runs down your face. So it's called blading because you use a blade to do it. They may have it in their cheek, in their tape. Sometimes the ref is holding it. It might even be hidden under a crash mat.
If you want a good example of this, watch WrestleMania 17. You actually see the ref pick it up and hand it to The Rock to conduct his blading. When we say the hard way, seeing how Hardbody got to sound like a smart mark real fast, I'm going to get to sound like a smart mark real fast. The hard way is say, Hardbody hits me with a chair and I just bust open naturally, is getting color the hard way.
And color is blood.
Yes. No, why'd you have to steal my thunder?
I'm sorry, I got excited. I thought
This is the argument episode.
I know.
All right. So we got ECW. We got it slowly going. We got the wrestling matches. We got what we feel about it. I don't think there's really much more I can really get into with ECW for me.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to say about ECW?
It was all awesome. I mean, you've got a company that you look throughout its history. They've got some really good stuff going on, from Cactus Jack and Terry Funk to Stunning Steve Austin, to Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn and John Cronus, the Dudleys, Raven, Tommy Dreamer, Mike Awesome. There's a lot of good stuff going on there. Rod Van Dam. There's a lot of good stuff going on straight up and down the history of that company. However, the company never gets past that glass ceiling that allows them to go nationwide. They get pay-per-views, but it's 100,000 buys, which is great. Sure, you got 100,000 buys on your pay-per-view, but you're performing in front of 2, 4, maybe 6,000 people in a big venue a night. How much money are you really making?
Well, obviously they didn't make any money because apparently Paul Heyman bled that company. Not really bled it, but pushed too much with the TNN contract when they got put on TNN, which was nationwide.
That's what killed the company.
What they wanted. Mm-hmm. And it was killing the company because then when they got put on a nationwide television program or channel,
mm-hmm.
that channel was like, we need to calm this down, or we're moving you to like 1 a.m. or something like that. Because at one point, I believe they were on at like midnight on TNN.
It was late, whatever time it was. Maybe 9 or 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And they didn't do any advertising for it. I don't think the ad execs at TNN watched the product. What did you think you were going to get with
Well, they
ECW?
probably thought they were getting... it's clearly like Heyman says. Heyman feels like they used ECW as a test for pro wrestling. And then because like a year later, WWE moves to TNN.
Yeah, it's like immediately.
Yeah, and then they drop ECW.
Well, they drop ECW first.
No, that's what I mean. They drop ECW, so ECW loses that money.
Yeah.
They're already getting bled by the pay-per-views not doing as well as they did when they first came out. By that time, they're not selling as many. The 100,000, like you said, it's cool and all. But think about when that starts to decline. That's not great.
Yeah.
I mean,
I wish we had, for their last 5 pay-per-views, there aren't any official numbers, and I'm real curious to what the buy rates are on
I'm
that.
pretty sure they weren't great.
Maybe 80,000.
Because you got to think about it. At one point, ECW had to keep building. If you think about it, they had to keep building talent because the talent was getting taken.
Yeah.
For like the first 6 pay-per-views I watched, the Dudley Boys were like the thing. And I will give you this: there's one thing ECW did right. Joey Styles was the truth on as a color commentator.
Oh, and he's doing it by himself.
Yes,
He's tremendous.
He's doing it by himself. He's doing all the interviews by himself. He's doing everything by himself. Because even when he had help, that person was garbage. I watched one where Dean Douglas said, and I'm not just on my Dean Douglas kick right now. I'm just saying he was out there, maybe said 10 words tops. Except for the Bam Bam and Taz match. The only thing he kept saying was, come on, Bam Bam.
Yeah, to be fair, Shane was out there to do the angle with Taz. That's the only reason he was out there.
I'm not dumb.
Yeah.
I get it. But you have Joey Styles every time the Dudley Boys came out would be like, I'm not cheering them. I'm not giving you hard statistics. I hate the Dudley Boys. Like, he sold it. And apparently him and Bubba and Devon are like close friends. But like when you watched it on TV, he hates the Dudley Boys. And even the announcer is making you believe that these dudes are the bottom of the bottom, scum of society. It's good.
And
there's some good things about ECW.
Part of the reason Joey Styles is so good is all that commentary is recorded after the fact. You get the footage, and he's sitting in a room doing the commentary.
Well, yeah, for the house shows and the TV shows, yes, I'll give you that, because they weren't live.
Yeah.
The only thing that was live, I believe, was the pay-per-views. That's why you see the technical difficulties and things like that, and that's when you can hear Joey slip up or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's still good by himself.
He's still good by himself, yes. But I mean, we already all know this. We all seen that. If you're a wrestling fan, you watched Beyond the Mat or whatever that documentary was, where a lot of the movie was about ECW. And they talk about how he shot this stuff in his New York home or in his parents' house.
Yeah. They talked to Paul and Joey and all them, and Terry Funk's like, if I can change and you can change, maybe
you could have taken the money.
We love you, Terry.
I don't.
What?
I don't. I'm just saying.
You told me that you watched Terry Funk and Onita in that exploding barbed wire match, and you don't love Terry? That match was tremendous. That was compelling.
Okay. I'm not a Terry Funk fan, but I will say that he's had good work. How about that?
He's a crazy cowboy, and I believe it.
Yeah, no, I'll give you that. I'll definitely give you that. Him and Mick Foley are crazy people.
Yeah.
The ECW guys, crazy people in my eyes. These dudes, you would never see me in a scaffolding match knowing, man, is Paulie going to pay me tonight or not? Plus, you're putting me in a scaffolding match where I don't know if I'm going to get paid with New Jack.
Nobody made him do it.
I'm just saying, that's why I'm saying I don't think a lot of these guys were, I'm not even saying I'm the brightest guy in the world, but still, like, I would have enough knowledge or logic in my head to be like, I'm not getting up on the scaffold not knowing if I'm going to get paid. What do you think?
I mean, I agree with you. I think the guy getting thrown off the scaffolding is a mark.
Thank you.
And and why are you doing it with New Jack, especially when you're Vic Grimes and you just made New Jack have a closed head injury like a year earlier? Of course he's going to try to kill you because New Jack's a piece of shit.
You said New Jack stabbed a guy. That was what, in 2009?
Yeah, that's an indie show in Florida.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And then we obviously have the mass transit incident where he cuts that 17-year-old's head open, which, in all honesty, New Jack is a big pile of shit. That ain't his fault.
It's his fault for cutting him. It's not his fault
It's his fault for cutting
ring.
him. Not his fault for being in the ring, but the kid said, cut me.
Which you never need to do.
Especially to New Jack. Definitely
Definitely not with New Jack.
Because New Jack didn't just fucking, like, take the box cutter and slit a little cut. He dug in. Like, apparently this kid's dead now. You know,
Yeah. He had a lot of weight problems and things like that.
And apparently never got over the fact because he had, like, massive scars up here from that incident.
Yeah, because he cuts him with like a freaking
box cutter,
something crazy, ridiculous.
I think it was a box cutter.
If I was Paul, I would have fired New Jack friggin' immediately.
Oh no! Like if you listen to New Jack tell the story, like in the courtroom, Paul Lee was selling it, and Paul Lee's part of the reason why he's not in jail right now or getting out of jail right now.
I just don't understand it. And New Jack is a prime example.
Is that a sign of saying how that company wasn't being managed properly?
Yeah, and part of it not being managed properly. And this is one of the few bad things I have to say about ECW, but it's a really critical bad thing, is Paul gives nobody any leash. If you look at New Jack and Mustafa in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, they're extreme, they're edgy, they offend people, and they're wrestling tough.
But they're still wrestling.
But it's not this. It's not cutting the guy with the razor. It's not throwing people off a scaffold.
Can we also say the same thing about Sabu? Like, Sabu has always done the flippy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This, that, and the other, but like the rapping with barbed wire and things like that, like the American audience didn't see that till he went to ECW. Because 94 to 96 or 95-ish, he's in WCW.
Yeah, he has a cup of coffee in WCW and it doesn't really work. You know, like he comes out with his uncle, the original Sheik,
Yeah.
and then he has some
Yeah.
of those fights with Alex Wright, and he can't stop putting people through tables and all that. It just doesn't work for that audience. But I think Sabu is fine. You know, he's extreme.
Do you think the drug problem within ECW's only harped on so much because of how extreme they were?
It's like a big...
Because we can honestly sit here and say that most of the 80s wrestlers for WWF were on drugs.
Yeah, the drugs were everywhere in the wrestling business, and they were everywhere in the 90s, too. ECW went out of business, and they're an easy target. They're an easy target that's going to take heat off of the WWE when the WWE guys talk about it. Do I think that excuses it? No. Because you've got Sandman wrestling Sabu while he's on LSD thinking he's in there with a dinosaur, and that's not safe. That match is freaking awesome, but I don't think it's very safe for Sabu.
So Sandman's not safe?
Not when he's on LSD.
When wasn't he on LSD?
I mean, he was on beer most of the time, to be fair.
To be fair, I've heard his shoot interviews, and apparently he didn't go out unless he was high.
I think he worked pretty good for being on LSD, if we're going to be honest about it.
Alright. I feel like we have done a lot of arguing this episode, Hardbody.
I feel a gulf in between us, Steve.
I feel a rift between the average bros.
Are the mega powers breaking up?
That tune in the pay-per-view, you know what I'm saying?
I don't think so. I don't think it's that kind of angle.
No.
But I think this is a good place to kind of put a bow on ECW. Do you think ECW is a good thing, a bad thing, an important thing, an unimportant thing? What's the legacy of Extreme Championship Wrestling?
The legacy of Extreme Championship Wrestling is their cult mentality of their fans.
Mm-hmm.
The work you got to see, what the bad side of wrestling is, and I'm not even saying that's all ECW's fault, but you saw a lot of it in ECW.
Mm-hmm.
You can benefit ECW to the Attitude Era, because it's exactly what you said. The Attitude Era is the ECW turned down by 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Spinal Tap. ECW goes to 11.
But it goes to 11.
And WWE had it up to 5. I feel like ECW was a developmental territory. Let's be real there. It was really developmental. Look at the guys that got started in like ECW that had long careers.
Mm-hmm.
The Dudleys, RVD, Jerry Lynn, Kid Cash, the Knacker, Just Incredible.
Just Incredible.
I hate to say it, Sandman has had a more career than I think he probably would have had without ECW, and that's probably only because WWE was trying to get ECW guys.
Yeah, Sandman's got some paydays out of WWE and TNA.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, exactly. Can I tell you one thing that I think I'm done with and over with now?
Sure.
I am over with every new company bringing in old ECW guys and doing an invasion story with
Oh,
ECW
man,
guys.
you are not kidding. That really worked in 2005. By the time we get around to 2010 and all that, it ain't working.
No, it's over. It's done. It's in the past. Like the Attitude Era is in the past.
Yeah.
WCW is in the past, and we have to keep looking forward.
Yeah, ECW was 20 years ago. It's never coming back.
Can you imagine that? It was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I'm super old.
We are old.
But it's in the past, and a thing isn't beautiful because it lasts forever. A thing is beautiful because it was here. And for that brief moment that ECW was here, it was beautiful.
You know, Hardbody, if you talk that way about women, you probably have more women in your life than
You're probably
ECW.
right.
But then again, who am I to talk? Alright, so here we go. We got 10 minutes left in the show. Let's talk about some Today wrestling.
Sure.
We kind of brought up WWE.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna harp on WWE a little bit. What are they doing with anything in WWE right now?
That company is literally worse than Al Qaeda.
You see what they're giving us on NXT tomorrow?
I like how you just no-sold my Al Qaeda comment.
Look, our first episode, I called them worse than ISIS, and I'm pretty sure that got us. We're never going to get YouTube money. But thank you, 30 listeners who listen to this show every week.
Yeah, I don't do this for the money. I do this for the love of the game, like the
I
ECW
agree.
locker room.
I agree. We do this.
Because if I believe, the listeners believe, Steve. And if they believe, we all believe. And then we're in the cult and we're indoctrinated and we're going to take it all the way to New York and we're going to overthrow Vince McMahon and Eric Bischoff.
Eric Bischoff is gone. He won't hurt you anymore. He can't touch you.
Eric hurt me real bad.
ECW is gone. This is the cult of the bros, where we talk about shitty wrestling from back in the day.
I got a little excited.
And newer wrestling that's just as equally shit today.
Yes.
So big news
Okay.
in the wrestling world. Not this Monday, not last night, but last Monday. Bobby Lashley, WWE champion.
Good for him.
I agree. Do you? And I know we already talked about this. I think we talked about it at the beginning of the show, so I'm not going to talk about it again. I don't agree with the angle they did with it. I kind of wish they would have just put Bobby over in the Elimination Chamber match.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And if you want my honest opinion, I've always been a fan of heel factions who are controlling everything. And I don't even know if you really can consider him a heel anymore because he's getting cheers. I don't know if he's a face or heel anymore. Bobby Lashley. At one point, the Hurt Locker was clearly heels. But I don't know if he's a heel. Once MVP is healthy, I would have put the U.S. title on him and have them run rough shop on Raw.
They're not going to do that. They should.
I mean, they're not going to, but MVP now has like a pimp cane, and I love it. I saw it on one of the little, the top 10 of Raw or whatever, and he's got like this little pimp cane that he's walking around with, and I love it.
I've always thought MVP was pretty good.
MVP is a little underrated. I'm not saying he needs to be WWE champion, but he could work. He could do a job.
He's got a good look. He can work a little bit in the ring. He can talk on the mic.
Oh, he can really talk on the mic, and that's what makes it so perfect that he got put with Lashley, because he can be Lashley's mouthpiece, because we all know Bobby can't talk on the mic.
Yeah, and the Lana the angle didn't work
Yeah, that
at
was
all.
just really bad. I wish they would have never done that with Bobby Lashley. I wish they would have brought him back and he just ran roughshod on some jobbers and worked his way up to the WWE Championship.
It was a rib on Miro who was leaving the company.
Exactly.
Which is really petty, Vince. Like, you're a billionaire. Come on.
Well, Vince is petty, and Vince is always going to be petty, and we just can only hope that one day
he goes out of business.
When he goes out of business, or when the other people take over, it somehow works better.
Trips isn't going to be any better.
NXT is watchable.
It's bad.
NXT is giving me Finn Balor versus Adam Cole tomorrow. That's a match that interests me. Those two guys can work. They're probably going to put on a stellar match.
Yeah, but what's going on with Adam Cole?
What do you mean what's going on with Adam Cole?
I mean, he's not put over the way that he needs to be. He's not talked about enough in the WWE media. Like, Adam Cole's like this
Well, no
blue
one's
chip
talked
up-and-comer.
about. I hate to tell you this, but no one on NXT is really talked about in the media for WWE.
Yeah, because that company's dumb.
Oh, I know their company's dumb. You got guys that are still in that NXT that have been there for like 4 years, and I get that NXT is their own show now, and that's probably right. Why? But like, why isn't what's his name? Thomas Tumba, the bald headed one from
Tunga?
DIY?
Yeah.
Why isn't he on the main roster yet?
It's a good question.
What about his partner?
Mm-hmm.
Who's doing this great heel gimmick where he's got his wife and she was the NXT champion or women's champion, I think, and he was the North American championship, and they were the ruling couple or something like that. So WWE is still trash, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Good job for Bobby. I will probably not be tuning into WrestleMania just because there's nothing that interests me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to see probably what's going to happen with Randy and Bray Wyatt, where Bray jobs to Randy with all this build-up they're doing.
It doesn't even matter at this point. Bray Wyatt's been ruined 4, 5, 6 times. He's got himself over again 4, 5, 6 times just to get buried again.
That's what I'm saying. I have no interest in Edge and Roman Reigns. I have no interest in whoever Bobby's going to be fighting. Mm-hmm. I have no interest in Asuka and Charlotte for the 4th time.
I've already seen it.
I don't need to see the girl with the hair, Bianca, versus Sasha, who botches more than she works.
I like Sasha.
I like Sasha too. I like her character, but if you watch her matches, she botches.
She's really physical. She's too small to be doing some of the work that she's doing, and then she botches due to that. And gets herself hurt.
Let's talk about it, though. Let's talk about the company that we care about. in modern day wrestling.
AEW, yes.
So they had a pretty big pay-per-view this weekend.
Revolution, probably, for me, their biggest pay-per-view. This is the one I've been the most excited about since the very beginning of the company.
What makes you excited about this pay-per-view before we watched it?
I was excited about the exploding barbed wire match. I was familiar with the barbed wire matches like Sabu and Terry Funk, or Sandman and Terry Funk in ECW. I'd seen some of the Cactus Jack stuff in Japan with the barbed wire, and I was really ready to see somebody get seriously maimed.
We kind of got that in that match, and now we're going to go back. We're going to go from up to back this time.
Now, bear in mind, Steve, this is really a sneak peek because we could probably do a whole show on this pay-per-view and the lead-up, and we've only got 5 minutes, so we got to keep it brief.
Okay, so we got 5 minutes left to kill in this episode. Let's not. And then, what do you want to do? Do you want to tell the fans what next week's going to be about? Are we going to finally do the AEW show?
I think we have to. I think that that's a good transition to something modern. We've talked about classic wrestling for the last several weeks here, and I'm definitely willing to talk about AEW. To be honest with you, I haven't watched Dynamite enough as far as the full shows.
But now we know it's on the Bleacher Report.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back and watch some of them. And I watch the YouTube channel every week. And
I watch Dark every week. And if there's one thing I'll leave this episode on is that I think they're doing good things by not trying to get a television episode on on the station more than once a week. Like their Dynamite is their main flagship show.
Yeah.
And now they're going to be they do Dark on YouTube, and now they're going to be doing some other show, I guess, with Paul White and Tony Schiavone commentating. I'm not 100% on the name yet. I think it's Evolution,
something like that.
but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if they would go with the name Evolution just because of the WWF faction or WWE faction.
Sure.
But if I had to grade the pay-per-view from this weekend, though, what are you giving it?
B-, C+.
All right, me and you are in agreement there.
Mm.
We're going to have to talk about this, though. Let's talk about that botch.
Which one?
The barbed wire botch.
Oh, the exploding ring?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I
turned it off immediately. I was like, this is done. Click.
The exploding ring that went...
Because when you look at Japan and the whole ring explodes, like that thing goes up.
Yeah.
And that's what
everyone was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
The fans were expecting it. We were expecting it. Eddie Kingston was expecting it.
Hey, shout out to Eddie Kingston for selling it like it blew up
Oh,
like
no.
it's supposed to.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying anything against Eddie Kingston. Like, talk about a dude that's like, I'm here to act like I got blown up saving my one friend, John Moxley, who was once my enemy.
Who is my friend then my enemy? Now he's my friend again. Ah, I'm dead.
And it's like...
What a worker, man.
Yeah, for real. Like, you got to give it up to him. Like, he does what he's supposed to do. He's selling. He's like, you're going out there. You're going to jump on John. That's how we're going to build this friendship back. And then the ring's going to explode. And you're going to take most of the damage for John. Go.
How mad are you if you're Tony Khan?
Oh, Tony Khan's apparently, like, according to the internet, he's, like, taking videos of it down. Like, if he finds it on YouTube of, like, a fan, he's having YouTube take it down.
I've got to put some more up then.
I know, for real.
Come on,
some
Tony.
of these fans with like their phones at the pay-per-view, man, it was perfect because like they caught one, and I really like this one video. Actually, I've seen it like in 3 different angles now because different people had their phones out. It's where John Moxley's sitting up, they get him uncuffed or whatever, and he's sitting up and he's got a mic in his hand. He was like, that Kenny Omega is one tough son of a bitch, but he still couldn't beat me without 2 of his girlfriends or something like that. And he goes, but I'll tell you this, he can't make an exploding ring for shit.
Yeah, I love you, Mox.
Yeah,
That's
like, way
to
to think smart and not just run to the back and be like, we fucked up. Like, way to be like, I'm going to talk shit right now to try to mend this.
Yeah.
And obviously people are going to talk about it because it's a botch. It's a big botch.
I'm not that worried about it. Like, I think it's funny, but did
I'm
it
not
kill the
worried about it
pay-per-view?
either.
No.
I still enjoyed the pay-per-view. I still enjoyed AEW Revolution.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty good product.
I think they need to keep doing what they're doing, but what I would like to see is more of this integration with the other companies that we already know Tony Khan has been talking to and has been in the works with. New Japan,
Yeah.
TNA, or Impact, or whatever the hell it's called nowadays. NWA apparently has officially talked to Tony Khan, which, what's that dude's name? Billy Corgan? I'm just a rat in a cage. He is not dumb, and he cares about the wrestling business.
Yeah.
As much as, we want to make a joke about it. Like, he cares about the wrestling business. But we will get more into AEW next week. We will talk about the rise and the current culture of AEW.
Mhm.
We will compare it to what we see on a daily basis or a weekly basis on the WWE and what we saw in WCW, and maybe some things that we hoped AEW does not do in the same aspects of ECW and WCW.
There's definitely good, bad, and in the middle.
Yes. Well, I'm your boy Diamond Steve.
And I'm still the quintessential and original Stud Muffin, Josh Hardbody.
Hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and we'll catch y'all next week.